In the dark and morally ambiguous world of The Boys, the character of Soldier Boy, brought to life by Jensen Ackles, emerges as a complex and controversial figure. Throughout Season 3, he's presented as a character enveloped in layers of mystery and contradiction, leading many in the audience, as well as characters in the show itself, to hastily categorize him as a supervillain. This view, however, overlooks the nuances and depth of his character. Soldier Boy, a product of a bygone era, encapsulates the values and mentalities of the mid-20th century, a time rife with its own set of moral and ethical complexities. His actions, often violent and misguided, are more reflective of a man struggling to navigate a world that has drastically changed from the one he was created to protect. This portrayal challenges the conventional black and white dichotomy of heroism and villainy, suggesting instead that Soldier Boy's character is a tragic outcome of the era he represents and the manipulative machinations of the powerful corporation that once controlled him. In this video, I'd like to unravel the layers of complication surrounding Soldier Boy, arguing that his designation as a supervillain by the end of Season 3 is a drastic oversimplification of a much more intricate and tragic narrative. Rather than embodying the archetype of a supervillain, Soldier Boy's story is that of a man lost in time, grappling with the consequences of a past that has irreparably shaped his identity and actions, making him as much a victim of his circumstances as he is a perpetrator of his deeds. Soldier Boy's background and motivations. Born in 1919 and reborn as Soldier Boy during the crucible of World War II, Soldier Boy is emblematic of a bygone era, strongly embodying the mentality and ethos of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. This character, as portrayed in The Boys television show, represents more than just a superhero. He is a living relic of a past that valued different norms and principles. Jensen Ackles' portrayal brings to life a character who earnestly believes in the righteousness of his actions, reflecting the mindset of a time when the lines between good and evil were drawn in stark, unambiguous terms. Soldier Boy's actions, often brutal and uncompromising, are not born out of a vacuum, but are deeply rooted in the cultural and societal values of his formative years. This perspective, as Ackles notes, reveals a character who is terribly mistaken in his self-perception as a hero. Soldier Boy's narrative arc is a poignant exploration of how a person's environment and the era they are shaped by can profoundly influence their worldviews. His actions, which viewers of the modern era might quickly condemn as villainous, were once considered heroic. This mismatch between his time-embedded values and the evolved moral compass of the contemporary world he finds himself in is at the heart of this character's tragedy. Understanding Soldier Boy in this light is critical. It allows the audience to see him not as a character who embodies inherent evil, but as one whose attempts at heroism are tragically misguided. His decisions and actions, though often harmful and destructive, are the product of a mindset that was once celebrated and revered. This dissonance between his ingrained beliefs and the modern world's expectations highlights the complex interplay between a character's historical context and their actions. Soldier Boy's story is thus a cautionary tale of how the heroes of one era can become the misunderstood figures of another, their once heroic deeds now seen through a lens tinted with modern sensibilities and moral judgments. The complexity of heroism in The Boys. The Boys, with its unflinching and gritty narrative, masterfully dismantles the traditional superhero paradigm, blurring the lines between heroes and villains in a way that is both provocative and unsettling. In this morally complex universe, Characters are not easily pigeonholed into conventional categories of good and evil. Soldier Boy, as a prime example, stands in stark contrast to the more clear-cut portrayals of characters like Homelander. While Homelander is often depicted as the quintessential villain under a veneer of heroism, Soldier Boy's character is imbued with a more profound sense of nuance and complexity. His actions, while frequently reprehensible and destructive, stem not from an innate desire for evil or chaos, but from the intricate web of manipulation and the insidious influence of Vought's propaganda machine. Soldier Boy's narrative is a vivid illustration of the corrupting power of institutional influence and the warping of ideals. Throughout the series, it becomes increasingly evident that his actions and worldview are significantly shaped by the machinations of Vought, a corporation that commoditizes superhuman abilities for its own gain. This manipulation distorts Soldier Boy's understanding of right and wrong, heroism and villainy, leading him to commit acts that, while intended to be heroic, often result in tragic consequences. His character thus represents the tragic fallout of a superhero archetype that has been exploited and twisted by corporate and political agendas. In this regard, The Boys does not just offer a critique of the characters themselves, but of the larger societal and corporate structures that mold and manipulate them. The series challenges the audience to question the very nature of heroism and villainy, suggesting that these concepts are often not inherent traits, but the products of external influences and circumstances. Soldier Boy, in this narrative, becomes a symbol of how even the most well-intentioned heroes can be led astray, not because of their inner failings alone, but due to the pervasive corruption and manipulation of the powers that be. His character arc is a poignant reminder of the thin line that often separates heroes from villains in a world where moral absolutes are increasingly elusive. Key events misinterpreted as villainy. Notable for his involvement in events like the Cold War, Soldier Boy is often seen through a villainous lens by other characters and the audience. This perception, however, warrants a closer, more nuanced examination. Soldier Boy's actions during this period, and others like it, are not as straightforwardly malevolent as they might initially appear. Instead, they are often the result of manipulation and a series of misunderstandings, their true nature obscured by layers of deceit and cover-ups orchestrated by Vought and government agencies. This intricate web of manipulation places Soldier Boy in situations where his actions, though seemingly villainous, are in fact responses to the convoluted scenarios engineered around him. His role in the Cold War, for instance, is a manifestation of the geopolitical strategies and power plays of the era, with Soldier Boy being used as a pawn in a larger game of international espionage and conflict. Vaught's involvement adds another layer of complexity as they leverage their soups for corporate and political gain, often twisting the truth and concealing their true intentions under the guise of patriotic duty or heroic necessity. Moreover, the government's role in covering up the true nature of these events further complicates the public perception of Soldier Boy's actions. The narrative presented to the world is meticulously crafted to serve the interests of those in power, painting Soldier Boy in a light that suits their agenda. This manipulation of truth and reality creates a false narrative around Soldier Boy, one in which his actions are stripped of their context and complexity, leaving only a caricature of villainy for public consumption. This misrepresentation is a critical aspect of Soldier Boy's character arc in The Boys. It challenges the audience to look beyond the surface and question the narratives presented to them. Soldier Boy's backstory becomes a commentary on how history is often written by the victors, how truth can be twisted for convenience, and how individuals can be vilified or glorified based on the whims and interests of those who hold the power. His character, therefore, is not just a depiction of a soup's life, but a reflection of the broader themes of manipulation, deceit, and the murky waters of moral ambiguity that the series navigates. Soldier Boy's PTSD and its impact. Soldier Boy is deeply marked by the psychological trauma he endured, particularly the post-traumatic stress disorder stemming from his prolonged period of captivity. This aspect of his character is critical in understanding his actions and behaviors throughout the series. The trauma Soldier Boy experienced is not just a footnote in his story, it's a fundamental part of his character that shapes his interactions and decisions. His time in captivity was not only physically grueling, but also mentally and emotionally shattering, leaving scars that profoundly affect his psyche. These scars manifest in various ways, most notably in the form of destructive outbursts. These episodes are not merely displays of villainous intent or uncontrolled aggression. They are the expressions of a deeply wounded individual struggling to cope with the horrors of his past. Soldier Boy's outbursts are indicative of the classic symptoms of PTSD, which can include flashbacks, severe anxiety, uncontrollable thoughts about past traumatic events, and intense emotional reactions to reminders of the trauma. In his case, the triggers are often tied to memories of his captivity, leading to reactions that are disproportionate and often violent. It is important to recognize that these actions, while destructive and harmful, stem from a place of psychological brokenness rather than the inherent evil or malice of a villain. Soldier Boy's character challenges the conventional portrayal of heroes and villains by highlighting the impact of mental health on a person's actions. His struggle with PTSD humanizes him in a way that is rare for characters in superhero narratives, offering a glimpse into the complexities of dealing with such a condition. In this light, Soldier Boy's character can be seen as a commentary on the often overlooked mental health issues faced by those who have experienced extreme trauma, particularly in a military context. His story serves as a reminder of the long-lasting effects of such experiences and the need for understanding and empathy towards those who are grappling with similar issues. It underscores the fact that behind every action, especially those that are seemingly incomprehensible or destructive, there may lie a history of pain and suffering that cannot be ignored. The betrayal of Soldier Boy and its consequences. The narrative of Soldier Boy in The Boys is profoundly shaped by themes of betrayal, which play a crucial role in his character development and the perception of him as a villain. This portrayal is multifaceted, involving his team, the Vought Corporation, and even the public he believed he was protecting. Each act of betrayal feeds into a cycle of disillusionment and bitterness, fundamentally altering Soldier Boy's perspective and behavior. Initially, Soldier Boy embodies the ideals of a patriotic superhero, dedicated to serving his country and protecting its people. However, this idealism is shattered by the betrayals he endures. His team, supposed comrades in arms, betray him, revealing the harsh truth that the bonds he valued were built on shaky grounds, more a matter of convenience than genuine loyalty. This realization is a deep psychological blow to Soldier Boy, who had placed immense trust in his team, only to be repaid with treachery. The betrayal by Vought is even more insidious, as the corporation responsible for his rebirth as a soup and his overall public image. Vought's manipulation turns Soldier Boy into a mere tool for their corporate and political agendas. They exploit his powers and reputation, showing no regard for his well-being or the ideals he stands for. When Vought orchestrates events leading to his downfall, it underscores their willingness to sacrifice even their most loyal assets for their gain. Finally, the betrayal by the public, whom Soldier Boy had sworn to protect, adds another layer of complexity to his character. The public's quickness to vilify him, influenced by Vought's propaganda and the media's portrayal, completes this cycle of betrayal. This societal rejection contributes significantly to his distorted worldview. Isolated and misunderstood, Soldier Boy finds himself alienated from the very society he once sought to defend. These layers of betrayal collectively push Soldier Boy towards a path that is often misinterpreted as villainous. His actions, increasingly extreme and violent, are reactions to the profound sense of betrayal and abandonment he experiences. He becomes a character who is not innately evil, but is driven to questionable actions by the continuous deception and treachery he faces. Soldier Boy's story, therefore, is not just about the descent of a hero into villainy, but a tragic narrative of how betrayal can corrode trust, warp intentions, and lead to a downward spiral of despair and anger. His character becomes a poignant example of how the hero's journey can take a dark turn when beset by betrayal and manipulation from all sides. Redefining villainy in the context of The Boys. In the intricate and morally gray world of The Boys, the delineation between hero and villain is consistently blurred, challenging conventional narratives and stereotypes. This ambiguity is epitomized in the character of Soldier Boy, whose journey and actions defy easy categorization within the traditional archetypes of heroism and villainy. Throughout the series, his actions, often morally ambiguous and fraught with complexity, resist the simplicity of being labeled as purely villainous. Instead, they reveal a character deeply shaped by his traumatic past and the morally corrupt environment in which he exists. Soldier Boy's trajectory in the series is a nuanced exploration of how a person's experiences and the influences of their surroundings can drastically shape their choices and identity. His traumatic experiences, particularly those related to his time in captivity and the betrayals he faced, leave indelible marks on his psyche. These experiences do not just affect him on a personal level, they fundamentally alter how he interacts with the world. His actions, though sometimes violent and destructive, are often reactions to the pain and confusion stemming from these traumas, rather than emanating from a place of inherent evil or malevolence. Moreover, the corrupt world that Soldier Boy inhabits, dominated by the machinations of Vought and the complex politics of the superhero industry, further complicates his moral standing. In this world, where moral corruption is rampant and the lines between right and wrong are constantly manipulated, Soldier Boy's actions can be seen as a response to the twisted reality he is confronted with. This setting influences decisions, sometimes leading him down paths that, while questionable, are understandable within the context of the challenges and betrayals he faces. In this way, The Boys presents Soldier Boy not as a traditional supervillain, but as a tragically flawed character, a man molded by his circumstances, struggling to navigate a world that has repeatedly let him down. His story is a testament to the complex nature of human morality, particularly in a setting where ethical boundaries are continually shifting, and the distinction between hero and villain is often a matter of perspective. Soldier Boy's character thus becomes a profound commentary on the impact of trauma, the corrupting influence of power, and the often ambiguous nature of morality, in a world where heroes and villains are not always what they seem. Conclusion. Soldier Boy emerges as a character whose depth and complexity transcend the simplistic label of a supervillain. Portrayed with nuance and depth, his character is a mosaic of the era's mentality he was born into, the personal trauma he endures, and the manipulative forces at play around him. These elements coalesce to form a portrait not of a man inherently evil, but one who is deeply tragic. Soldier Boy's actions, often violent and morally questionable, are not solely a product of villainous intent, but are influenced by the values and beliefs of the mid-20th century, a period marked by rigid moral codes and stark definitions of heroism and villainy. These societal norms, deeply ingrained in his psyche, clash dramatically with the more complex moral landscape of the present day, leading to actions that, while out of place in modern context, were once considered heroic. Furthermore, The personal trauma that Soldier Boy experiences, particularly the PTSD resulting from his harrowing experiences in captivity, adds layers of psychological complexity to his character. This trauma shapes his reactions and decisions in ways that are often unpredictable and destructive, yet they stem from a place of suffering and mental anguish, not malice. The series invites the viewers to empathize with his struggle, to see beyond the surface-level actions, and understand the profound impact that such trauma can have on a person's psyche. Additionally, the manipulation that Soldier Boy is subjected to by Vought and other powers further complicates his character. He is a puppet in their hands, used and discarded as per their whims, a tool in their pursuit of power and control. This manipulation strips him of agency, making him a victim of circumstances beyond his control. It illustrates how even the strongest can be bent and broken by the machinations of those more powerful. As viewers, we are thus presented with a character who challenges our conventional understanding of heroism and villainy. Soldier Boy's story is a poignant reminder of the complexities of human nature, urging us to look beyond black and white labels and consider the myriad factors that shape a person's actions. The series pushes us to reassess our perceptions of characters like Soldier Boy, who, in a world rife with moral ambiguity, can no longer be neatly categorized as simply heroes or villains. His character becomes a symbol of the tragic consequences of living in a world that often fails to acknowledge the gray areas in between.